Greg Fitzgerald. I started my tech company, my managed service provider company back in the 90s, although it wasn't an MSP back then. It was just computer support and application development, but eventually turned into a managed service provider. Greg heads up a company that does cybersecurity that helps MSPs that support small to medium businesses. Interesting conversation on where cybersecurity is right now. There's so many players. There's so many vectors that need to be protected, so many areas that need to be protected. And Greg has very interesting insight on how they approach it. Really great conversation with Greg Fitzgerald. I'm glad he had time to do it. Thanks so much for listening and for watching. Hi, I'm Joey Pinz, and here's my 45-second introduction. After starting my business in the 90s, I started developing poor habits of eating in my diet because I was working way too much. Before you know it, I found myself 340 pounds. The doctor told me if I don't lose the weight, I'm not going to see my daughter graduate. Took the next 7 months, lost 130 pounds. People think there's some secret. Ask me, how'd you lose that weight? Like there's some secret. There is no secret. How did I lose the weight? Just one word: discipline. I've had other successes in life, and I attribute them all to discipline. Now, I'm not the king of discipline, but I believe that it can help all of us. Friends, colleagues convinced me to start a podcast. The podcast mission: how do we better ourselves and society? I talk to interesting people in health, fitness, sport, wellness, business, technology, science, art, and culture. And I eventually ask them how discipline plays a role in their life. Podcast vision: growth through learning from others. Yeah, Greg, great to see you, man. Thanks for your time today. How'd you get into Catamarans? You're in Austin.
I am. It's a great question. It's funny. I grew up, I'm from North Carolina. Let me back up. I'm from North Carolina. We moved to Puerto Rico. My dad ran Latin America for Nabisco. And we would sail down there with some families, right? They'd have a boat and as a kid. So I was junior high and high school. And I kind of got the bug a little bit. And then I went to college, didn't do anything. Out of school, met guys that were some sailors, and they were always on these monohulls. And they'd be like, hey, Greg, do you know how to sail? I'm like, not really, but we'll teach you some things. So I got into that. And then over the years, it's been off and on. And one of my bucket list items was to learn how to sail. But and then what I learned, like catamarans are basically houseboats on the ocean. I was like, that's awesome. Because they're just so big and comfortable. And I said it was a bucket list. And so about 5 years ago, kind of went through the whole 101, 102, 113, 114, what they call it. And, and it's fun to think. It's just one of those little hobbies that kind of got really exciting to me. And so at least once or twice a year, we'll take the family. And that was kind of the cool thing. When you're on a monohull, it lists and it's harder. It's literally more like racing. Like some of the people I used to race what they call a J22 with a guy, and that's all cool, like for us, but it is not comfortable. And so this was more of I could sit there with a beer in my hand, the sun in my, the wind in my hair and the sunglasses on, and just be like, this is awesome. And it still moves at a pretty good clip, 6 to 7 knots usually with the wind. And, you can always motor it whenever the heck you want to. Right. Which is about half the time, to be honest with you. But you get to kick back, and I just loved it. So it got into me. It's an expensive habit, just like golf. Yes. So I don't own one. It's interesting. I've been looking, and I get so tempted. And every time I come real close to getting one, I'm reminded like it's just a money pit. Because I have owned some small boats. I had a pontoon boat, and I've had a motor boat, but every single time it's a money pit. So you're right. You know what, as I always say, we're not recorded right.
In this fast-paced MSP landscape, how do you stay ahead? Introducing MSPinfluencer.com, your ultimate hub for MSP news, insights, and community connection, powered by ForzaDash. More than 75,000 MSPs subscribe to our MSP Influencer Pulse weekly newsletter, staying informed and ahead of industry trends. Tune in to emerging podcasts from Joey Pinz and leading MSP voices, offering essential tips, powerful insights, and success stories. Explore our multi-authored blogs, crafted specifically for MSP leaders, delivering fresh perspectives and actionable strategies. Celebrate excellence with the industry-leading ForzaDash MSP Influencer Awards, recognizing innovation, leadership, and impact in the MSP community. Join thousands of MSP professionals who trust MSPinfluencer.com to grow their business and expand their networks. MSPinfluencer.com, where today's MSP leaders connect, collaborate, and conquer, all powered by the ForgeDash platform, helping MSP vendors work effectively with MSPs and helping MSPs grow.
You know, just rent it, put it that way, right?
Okay. Oh, yes. I know the phrase. Much better to have a friend with a boat than to have a boat. I always.
That's correct. Or if you're going in, you go in with another colleague, and that's the fun part. Yeah. So you split the costs, and it works out well. But it's been a wonderful kind of hobby, I should say. One that I can share with friends. This spring, we brought a bunch of friends down to the Bahamas. I love the Bahamas, especially the Abaco, Bahama, northern side of Bahamas, because it's easy to get to. You know, you're literally an hour or less from Miami. Technically, if anything ever happened out there, you can get a speedboat, which a lot of people do, between Miami and there, where you wouldn't even need a flight. So it's shallow, and everything you see in that beautiful blue water where it's just gorgeous is there, because realistically, there's nothing deeper than 30, 40 feet.
Wow.
And when you're on the inside, this what they call the sea, they call it Abaco, but the sea area, and it's protected by the outer islands, and it's just beautiful. Oh my gosh.
Yeah, boy, you're making me want to sail now. Yeah. I never heard the term monohull, but that makes sense. Just one hull versus two in a catamaran. Yeah.
Yeah.
Can there be more than two?
There can be. There's actually newer boats coming out with 3. Adds more stability. What's amazing about the industry is that it has modernized so much, and especially with the more modern racers are finding more advanced technologies to glide through the water faster and more streamlined abilities for the racing. But eventually that gets adopted by the more comfort class premier type boats, and so you get the benefit of all that. And so there are some that are now 3, which are a little more stable, especially if you're not going to necessarily race it. And I'm not racing, and I'm also not going across the ocean. Yours truly is. I like to see land. Yes. I like to know where I am, but mostly because I want to, we do have Starlink now, which is, that's the most amazing technology that you can be out in the middle of nowhere, literally, and not see anything around you and have perfect high-speed Wi-Fi, and you can do work. And yeah, it's crazy. The people you meet are so neat. It's a neat culture. Boating is a neat culture because everybody sees I don't want to say the benefit of being kind of in God's world, right? Because you're out to the nature. And so, especially there, I would pull into, port into a number of places, and there are guys banging on the computer. I'm like, what are you? And he's like, oh no, I'm a sales rep, or I'm director of customer support for a tech company, and you're like, and you're here? And like, yeah, I'm not on vacation. I live here, or we live on this boat. And it's amazing to see that kind of lifestyle. You have to make it a lifestyle, to be honest, because there are lots of discomforts and things that go along with it. Not a lot of, but and it's also very expensive, even from the food. When you're at the Bahamas, everything's shipped in, right? There's nothing local or there, but it's fun.
Yeah, real fun. Yeah. Why are you called the Translator, Greg?
The Translator, that's a great question. I was one, I think, because I've lived in 6 countries and 6 states, and I learned Spanish by force, mostly when we moved to Puerto Rico, but lived in Canada and lived in England, lived in Switzerland, lived in Amsterdam. These were all work related, where I was working for a tech company in most cases, and it started early in my career, where I was going from finance. I was in finance out of my undergrad. Went back to graduate school because frankly, I wasn't all that great at it. And I said, what do you do if you're going to change careers? And graduate school is a great way to do it. So I slammed two master's degrees, an MBA from University of Colorado, and a second master's of international management from a school called Thunderbird, which is now associated to Arizona State. But at the time, it was a premier school. And that kind of got into understanding another person, not just what they're saying verbally, but kind of what are their needs and wants. And I got hired into Compaq Computer Corporation in '96, and in '97, and then took that to where I was interviewing. They had a really unique interview process where you met with basically 7 people, and by the time you finished, they had an answer. Like each time
Wow.
you left someone, it was either thumbs up or thumbs down kind of thing. And I met with all these engineers, these computing engineers and hardware engineers, and I didn't know anything about it because that was not my background. But the reason they said we want to hire you is because you translated, meaning I understood what these engineers were building into value. So I was able to repeat back to them, "Oh, I think I understand what you're building, and the value is this."
Hmm.
And vice versa. They were asking you questions where you were telling them what the market needed and wanted, so then they could understand clearly and simply what they need to build.
Wow.
And I was like, "That's fantastic!" Like it was just an innate kind of skill of understanding another person,
Hmm.
and it seemed, and that took off. And in the tech world, I ended up loving it, and it just turned out to be that was kind of consistent with what I've done my entire career.
Hmm. Well suited for you too. You were talking to me earlier about the Coca-Cola Olympics. What'd you learn from that? What a great experience.
Oh man, the Coca-Cola Olympics were fantastic. So, as part of graduate school, I was asked to join the Coca-Cola company as a contractor with the Olympic torch relay,
Wow.
and it was very neat. They had about 44 cities that our group was responsible for, and I had a handful of those. And what the
What
idea was,
country? What
it
country
was
was
in
it?
the we
I
were in
guess
the United States, but I was
ah,
representing countries like Poland as a great example.
I
So
see.
I'll give you that as a good hard example. So in Poland and each of these countries where Coca-Cola was promoting a contest. In some cases, some countries would have famous people that they would want to send and represent running the torch in the United States in some area of the country. Usually we tried, meaning Coca-Cola, tried to pick areas of the country where your ethnic background was the strongest. So, for example, Poland was in Chicago. One of the largest populations of Polish people was in Chicago, and they ran a competition in the country of Poland to get their 2 participants. And so, our job here, as part of the torch relay, was to work with the other people that would basically bring all the press, analysts, and the Polish contingency, so that when their people ran through that particular section of town, the signs were in Polish, the interviews were in
Wow.
Polish, and it was a respect for the country, right?
Hmm.
So, yes, you're in America, and it's a beautiful, wonderful country we're in, but we respect your country, and your people are here. And so they got that comfort. And so it was a
Hmm.
beautiful experience, really. And Coca-Cola did a fantastic job in those Olympics. And that was just a special time for me, even me to be a part of it and to see how a truly top-notch marketing firm in the world handles things and perception, right? And
Mm.
that's obviously translated into obviously a lot of my career as well, is handling perception, especially in technology companies that always think that their product is the best and that people should buy it because it's a great product. And where they miss, hinders the translation, is they got to solve a problem. They got to
Mm.
create some sort of, there's got to be a truly strong need that you're going to separate one's money from their own hands and obviously from what the pains they're experiencing. So it was fabulous experience.
Because Coca-Cola is the most widely known logo in the world. You can anywhere in the world, you see everybody knows the Coca-Cola logo. It must have been amazing to work for that company.
It really is. I mean, and then being also over 100 years old at the time
Mm.
too. And my school, one of my college that I went to was Emory University in Atlanta, which, by the way, they call it the Coca-Cola University
Huh.
because Asa Candler, the original inventor of Coca-Cola back in the 1800s, uh, put a tremendous amount of donation to that school.
I
And
see.
then Goizueta, who was one of the CEOs, also did that, and now their business school is the Goizueta School of Business,
Hmm.
and so very much a tight relationship there.
Yeah, and to this day, aren't there like only 2 people that know the real recipe and they can't be on the same plane and there's all this it's amazing.
Something to that effect, yes. I mean, yeah, that's obviously a closely held secret.
Right, right. Interesting, interesting. Are you still held to those kinds of things? It's very how long were you there?
Oh, I was only there for about 9 months of
I see.
the like I said, I was contractor between, graduate school, getting out, and then running it through the Olympics in '96, and then after that, uh, got I found, what's interesting, the bottom line was that Coca-Cola is awesome. It's a beautiful place, great coverage, but it's sugared water, right?
Yeah, it sure is.
Doesn't move fast for me. I
Right.
was like, this is to try to make any change, hence why they have a sustainable brand. They don't do anything haphazardly. It's, thoroughly thought through, researched, which is great for how both how big and how good that brand is. But that didn't move fast enough for young Greg Fitzgerald. And I was like, I've got change. I've got to figure out what's changing. And that's where technology caught my attention. And it was a unique piece of time in one's life. Everything really comes down to timing in life. And it was interesting because in 96, the internet was just kind of becoming commercialized. And it's kind of funny to talk about that now because we just all take it for granted and all the things that can happen. But I got out, and right before I actually went to Compaq, I was with an internet service. Well, I went to Compaq, and then I went to an internet service provider where we were literally getting people on to the internet with dial-up, right? And we had a CD, and we're giving it to people. Put CDs, if you remember those, in there to load the software and do the connection to your telephone system, which of course still had a plug in the wall at the time. And, it was the and it'd take like literally 7-10 seconds to have a web page just go click, 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 click and show up, right? So totally something the younger generation now has no clue that actually existed at the time. And that was a phenomenal experience to get into tech.
What if discipline wasn't about punishment, but about unlocking your best self? I spent 2.5 years writing Discipline for Greatness because discipline changed my life. And I know it can change yours too. This isn't theory. Inside, you'll find real, practical steps you can use immediately to focus better, build stronger habits, reduce stress, accomplish your goals, and bring more balance to your life. Whether you're trying to get healthier, improve your career, or simply feel more control, this book gives you the framework. Start today. Grab your copy of Discipline for Greatness at joeypinz.com/book. Thank you. So you were at BMC, you were at, like you mentioned, Compaq, Fortinet, Cylance, and now you're of course you're at Sevco. What did you learn at those previous companies before Sevco?
The wonderful place is there's a framework of the big companies. So one of the things that I loved is the Compaqs, the BMC softwares, the Fortinets, the Sourcefires even. I mean, they're big companies that have been through management practices that have processes and systems which are sustainable. Obviously, they all started as small companies, but then they grew and they have great systems around how to build a product, create the value, promote that product, and run the organization where they're incentivizing the people the right way. People feel very proud. And so learning from those frameworks helped me a ton to go back into these startups. And because they have no frameworks. And a lot of people that get into these startups, especially nowadays, frankly, aren't coming from the bigger companies that have that management skills, management experience. And so I've loved kind of bouncing back and forth, frankly, between the bigger companies and the small companies. Because the small companies are great, but they wear you out because you have to do everything, right?
Yeah.
Bigger companies have resources and people to help. I guess it's more of a marathon in their world. And these are small companies. These are sprints, trying to get your product into the market and then get recognized and then help they grow. And then usually, in my case, as you said, in my background, I've been very blessed to have picked. I'm not going to say winners. I mean, the reality is most of them have been winners where they've either gone public or very fast growth companies while they've been public or gotten acquired. And so most of the cases, my companies have been getting acquired. You get them up, you get them recognized, you show the key value. Some large organization realizes that from a build versus buy, it's much better to buy you, fit right in, integrate, and then move on, really, at that stage.
And now at Sevco, what is it about cybersecurity that attracts you, Greg?
That's a good question. And the reason is I got into it through BMC software, which was just doing management of networks and databases and applications and monitoring for their performance. And in that, we started to realize that was when like McAfee was like really McAfee, like a real antivirus product.
Mm.
And you had you needed software firewalls at the time, not hardware firewalls, and you had antivirus, and I was like, why is there security? I didn't quite get it at the time because things were all data and stuff were inside an organization. It was actually hard to get access to that. And then once the internet started to expose access abilities and Wi-Fi became more universal, it became a wonderful game of good versus bad. I mean, cowboys and Indians. I live in Texas. It's like, hey man, it was that kind of a world, and you realize that the skill sets. This is really fascinating. The skill sets between a bad person and a good person are the same.
Wow.
The only difference is the moral compass, because I can use my skills for good, or I can use my skills for bad. And that has been just kind of my modus operandi, which is to protect the planet. And one way, shape, or form, be on the good side and try to fight the bad guys. And, it gives mission, it gives purpose. In a weird kind of way, it's a sexy type of a business. I mean, it's like spy novel stuff. Like a lot of stuff you read in books or watch some of the movies, they're not far off. And they've done through some things on research. So like one of the movies from a number of years ago is Black Hat. I mean, there's also a trade show of that, but that's a movie, and it's about hackers, and how they go about doing what they do. And it's fascinating, movie, because it's some people that's all surreal. And if you talk to threat researchers and even hackers, they kind of make fun of it in a sense, but the skills are there, and it actually teaches the rest of the community. Like, this stuff is real. It's not all movies. And those are the simple things, because now you break it down and you've got everything from spam, which everybody freaking hates, to true nation state actors where we're in a Cold War. I mean, they have their finger on the button for most of our infrastructure, but we have the same thing in their countries. And most of it is just sitting dormant, meaning they've gotten in. We did a report when I was at Cylance. So being one of the founding chief marketing officer of Cylance was great, because that was kind of in 2012 all the way up through BlackBerry's acquisition. And that whole segment of that business was really showing some reports where we did one that showed that actors from Iran, and I can't be specific that it was Iran, but it was actors associated to that, had infiltrated 50 countries and 50 industries.
Wow.
And what's fascinating is that these are big things like airports, universities, yes, banks, but they weren't doing anything. Like, we could see that they'd gotten in and then they just went dormant. And it was so fascinating, because you're like, why? And of course, you've got all the governments, and their particular, they call them certs, but there's, their cyber groups are there. They want to be in, they want to move around. They call moving it laterally into the organization, and then just sit, because they can observe and they can see. And then they can, if they wanted to, the problem was, and I was on CNBC for this particular report back in the day, where the oil spill that happened in the Gulf, remember how big that was? And it was a massive issue. And that was just one oil well that had gone faulty. They found out it was an actual technical fault. But what we knew was a bad actor, is what we call them, could literally shut down 50 of those, 100 of these. I mean, the whole world could come to a screeching halt with the push of a button. And that is what is phenomenal. And it's not movies, right? It is not theory. This is actual. And, I also equate it when my mom asked me, like, what do you do? And I'm like, you've seen the movie Men in Black, right, Mom? She's like, yeah. And I was like, that's it. There's a statement in there where they said, the world's about to be annihilated. And Tommy Lee Jones says, yeah, we're always 6 seconds from annihilation. And that is the reality of what's out there. So that makes it kind of sexy and scary at the same time. Sure. But to be frank, I don't sleep with money under my, my pillow and under this, right? If it's going to happen, it's going to happen, right? And so you can't live in fear. You just got to live through it and, be diligent. Don't push on stupid buttons, and when people were, telling you click here, or hey, you've won, $1 million. That, like, come on, use common sense and double check things. So, by industry is interesting, and I am, and especially when I was at Cylance and have been in these other organizations, a target for attackers,
Hmm.
because if they can get into me, they can get into you, and they can
Right.
get into other things, right? And so I have to even be more diligent about what I click on, what I see, who sends me stuff. Um, and to be honest, I know my computers, even probably this one, is hacked already.
Hmm.
Like, there's just no, I mean, because there's a lot of things, you go to websites and you don't even know it, and something's being downloaded to your computer. So there's just it's out there. It's just, you got to roll through it. But it's costing, as there's tons of reports are costing the world, you know, hundreds of billions to trillions of dollars, and it's a massive, never-ending series of good versus bad.
Yeah, just general digital hygiene can keep you away from a lot of danger. What is AI helping or hurting this cause? You feel, Greg?
Whew, it's funny when you think about the good versus bad. You also have the concept of leapfrogging, which is always that the good guys will come out. Well, let me back up. The bad guys will come out because they're researching how best to break into your whatever, your organization, your house, your networks, and then the good guys come out with technology that thwarts it. And then the bad guys learn how to circumvent it. And then the good guys come back with ordnance. And what I think is now is it's been very manual, obviously, up until the past, really 2012. Cylance was literally one of the very first companies in technology and cybersecurity that brought together the concept of what AI is, machine learning back in the day,
Mm.
with the principles of how to detect and defend, organizations, peoples, and networks. And with that, what we saw really is there's the power of the good guys got ahead, really, at that time. Like, wow, you can, through technology, you can see things that humans just can't. You can do things faster that humans just can't. There's certain things that didn't, even with the cloud coming in, didn't exist and weren't even possible before true cloud computing was enabled. So answering your question around AI, the good guys are learning how to use it, but the bad guys are too.
Mm.
And they're able to use that in their fashion and ways to find and test quicker, um, less forms of detection for how they penetrate, again, an organization, application, or network. And the good guys are trying to work on the same thing. So it's all it's doing is really advancing the next phase of kind of good and bad, and how we come up with technologies.
Mm. So, Greg, how does Sevco help managed service providers and in turn small to medium businesses?
Oh, that's a great question, and I'm glad you asked it. Sevco is a company I founded with my co-founder JJ Guy in right in COVID. Really, no joke, the week after COVID was
Wow.
announced, we had launched, and the idea behind it was he and I just worked together and sold another company that was in the event management, the security event management space. And what we realized was, after our careers, he was mostly in the government, and then he went to Carbon Black for endpoint detection response. I had done all those other technologies. You noticed that most of them were point products and come from Cylance, and we realized that you can't protect what you don't know.
Mm.
So, the simple premise. And 20 years ago, you knew, like,
Hmm.
most organizations were a fortress. They knew who had what devices. You could be like, oh, well, yeah, we're a Dell shop, or we're an HP shop, or we're a Lenovo shop. But now, over the past 10 years, as you know, and the iPad, think about this, iPad didn't even exist until like 2010, something like that, 11. And so personal devices hadn't really come in back in the day. Now, you can't, I mean, everything's connected, literally phones, TVs, all the walk, I mean, pretty much everything. I was going to say your refrigerator and your grocery, but
Mm.
even at your offices, people are everywhere. There's not that central kind of control that used to happen. Now you have managed service providers and managed security service providers handling either all or parts of an organization. And Sevco, we've just realized we needed to create a technology that will help people know what they don't know. And what was fascinating is instead of adding another tool or system out there where you're like, I got to load another agent or deploy another technology or install something. No, our fundamental belief is and has been that the organizations have all the data to know this. The challenge is that it's siloed. Right? So if you've got your endpoint detection, that's great. I know where what's on the devices and where they are. Great. I have my login system, whether it's Okta or a Duo for my two-factor authentication. I've got my Microsoft Active Directory for understanding basically the entire organization itself and kind of what are the people and who's accessing. You've got your network monitors. You've got your outside attack surface systems and red teaming is coming in. Awesome. You're doing the right thing with the right tools. The problem is the tools don't talk to each other and they collect different data. So therefore, when one presumes that, say, my vulnerability tool is going to be my de facto database, I'm just going to believe whatever it sees because it's scanning my environment. Well, one, it doesn't scan everything. It can't. Second, things are either can't be touched, like in medical systems, like don't touch that heart monitor because if that goes offline, someone literally can die, that kind of stuff. I've got, dark spots, places that are around the world that we can't have poor network connections. So we can't do all the security things. And the point is if we can grab what we call the metadata, so basically just the essential data around finding every device, every application, every user, and then every vulnerability associated to the user, the device, and the application, and put that in one data set. We, Sevco, our magic is being able to deduplicate it, deconflict it, normalize it, and then parse it out so that then the practitioners have a trusted data set that, by the way, is real time. I mean, almost real time. We take data from everything all the time, and we're deduplicating, doing all that stuff all the time. So we'll have the most current data set of this information. And with that, they can now do 1,000 things and 1,000 things better, right? So we based the second premise was, it takes good data for good decisions. The problem is people are making decisions on bad data or incomplete data, right? And it goes to your AI statement. AI is awesome, but it's not when it's working on bad data. And that's one of the challenges of why you get hallucinations and you get other bad things by an automated bot, because again, it's relying on data. And it better be good data. So we've really focused on the data quality and what value that can provide. And on top of that, that goes everything to compliance, making sure I'm actually complying with like NIST or other frameworks. Some are legal, like ISO can be a major piece. They affect insurance. And what you pay is your premiums as well as your deductibles, right? It can go to legal elements and exposures that are out there just legally. Did you know? So a lot of data movement is right. You got to know when someone's personal data is somewhere. We don't collect the data. That type of information. We're more of we know you, your devices, the applications you use, and what's wrong with them all. We don't look at the underlying data underneath that. That's another tool. It's another system that we complement with. But it's and that, by the way, one could build that, but we're a startup. So we focus on what we do best. So that's what Sevco does. And the value comes out to be a huge ROI for organizations. And in particular, as we're talking today, it's interesting because like I told you, I was with an ISP, internet service provider. I actually own a MSSP, I should say, called Cyberforce Security, which appeals just to the small businesses, small MSPs and MSSPs who want professional technology, but at the appropriate cost and support. So as an example, I started this when I was coming out of Cylance because I realized this wonderful technology that the world has is pretty much being sold to enterprises and governments, right? That's protecting it. But the great thing is that those enterprises and governments have people or they have big service providers that are helping them. It's the mom and pop It's the small, medium business are getting hammered. And not only that, they lose their business. So where a big company can take the hit financially or even reputationally, small company can't. And if big thing with ransomware has been they're going to these small organizations and they say, hey, you need to pay me 50,000. And the organization's like, I don't have $50,000, right? And if they do, they're now cash flow strapped and they're out. And with PCI and retail sectors, they're sitting there going, they get fined. They get fined for not being in compliance, right? Well, the fines are pretty expensive too. So the idea is we had to help them. So with Sevco and Cyberforce, two different tools, two different companies, but it was the Sevco model was to help give visibility to the organizations. And so now what we've really focused on in the MSP and MSSP sector is to help those organizations by their service providers, right? So that the companies in this space, they are the doctor's office, the lawyer's office, they're the retail store, they are the other professional services that are out there. They're doing a job. And then these MSPs and MSSPs are providing them the technology and hopefully the security services they need. The challenge is, as I mentioned, the organization itself doesn't know, and the service provider certainly doesn't know because the organization doesn't know. And then the buyer of the technology often, won't tell them, oh, I actually bought 5 more computers at Best Buy, or, oh, by the way, we fired a bunch of people and they took their computers. Like that communication does not happen, or not often. And it's real time. And so the idea was, whoa, let's get an understanding of your assets, of all the devices you got, who's working there, what are your applications, and then what's wrong with them. And what's really coming out of this is a new ability for the services companies to empower, enable, and fulfill their promise to their customers and differentiate by saying, I can see more, therefore I can add more value to you. And what's fascinating is, here's a good example. We have an MSP group that manages and handles 800 hedge funds, mutual funds around the world. They took Sevco, installed it in less than 3 days. So you can get up and running, but and deployed it out to their organizations. They did not even tell them, because it's just part of a service. They found more devices and more applications and more people that they needed to manage, that it rose their revenue by 40%. Because they just found more so they could do more. The most fascinating thing is the customers were excited about it because they're like, that's what I'm paying you for, right? So yes, it's going to cost me more, but I'm getting value out of that. And so everybody wins, and I'm a big win-win-win guy. So in this case, it's awesome because we sit there and we are able to give them the product at a very affordable cost. We also do it in a way that's on arrears. So you charge your customer as an MSP or MSSP, and guess what? You don't pay us until after you're getting paid. So the cash flow works very well for this market. We happen to be multi-tenanted. We specifically designed this product from the very beginning to be cloud native and multi-tenanted because we know that you got an MSP, you've got dozens to hundreds to thousands of companies that you're managing that you can't do with one console, and you need things to roll up appropriately. So it's nested in that visibility of understanding what's happening, and you're not going to change the organization's infrastructure, right? So we don't require any of that. And the MSPs that are using us love us. And we just got another service provider that's blowing us out to a bunch of their customers, and they've enabled 3 new services. So not only do they get visibility to see more and they can manage more, they're now this new one is rolling us out as a new service, and they're doing assessments. So think about this. They get to come in as differentiator where they can say, hey, Mr. Customer, if you'll give us literally 1 hour and you can let us connect to simple sources, doesn't have to be intricate, but like your endpoint security or a patch management if you have it, or maybe your Active Directory. Again, not any sensitive type stuff. It's like, you know what? We'll be able to show you something you've never seen before. And they're like, okay. And what happens is within a next day, literally, we load it up. Within that same hour, we're starting to pull the data. Well, it's interesting. We pull historic data, right? So we don't have to wait and let it like run to get information. We're pulling historic data, and we can immediately show them the devices that aren't being patched, that haven't got protection around them, that have been out of service, ones that are end of lifed. We show a lot of where, especially in organizations that are more sensitive, that are like can't have any Chinese or foreign computers or systems in their system. They'll be like, what are we doing with this network? Where did it come from? Right? How did this get here? Well, people buy things, they test things all the time, and they bring them in. And so we find that kind of stuff and show them how to clean up, like you said earlier, that your kind of security posture, security, cleanliness in general, just taking the basics.
Digital hygiene.
Yeah, you're so right. General hygiene. And it's very strong for these organizations. And then for an MSP, which we work with a lot of MSPs who are basically hardware, right? They're like, hey, we're large Dell reseller. We really push these type of this equipment or applications. If they want to get into the security space but don't have the experience, it's a great way to step zone into it, because it's really doing a bunch of asset management, but giving security posture understanding that allows them, and it literally spells it out for them in the application, because we got reports. So it'll be like, boom, here's all your systems that aren't patched. Well, that's an IT job, not really a security job, even though it kind of crosses boundaries. Because the security people are like, hey, I need this patched. I need the application to be updated, right? Because an application. So they're like, okay, this is great. It helps streamline the two organizations, which often can be at odds with each other, mostly based on their purpose, right? I'm IT. My job is 5 nines uptime, availability, performance. So security is important, but it's down the list relative to what is important. Where the security guy or girl is like, I am paramount for the risk of this organization. For anything gets stolen, right, or any data that is being misused, bad actors, you name it, and I need these things done quicker, faster. And so the two worlds have typically not shared information all that easily, both for politics, organizational dynamics, but also the tool systems didn't really have something that would be shared across both organizations.
Want to show your love for discipline, inspiration, and the Joey Pinz podcast? Now's your chance. Introducing the brand new Joey Pinz merch store, where style meets discipline. Choose from premium apparel, cozy hoodies, stylish hats, durable bags, and your new favorite coffee mug, all featuring the iconic Joey Pinz logo. Perfect for podcast fans, discipline enthusiasts, or as unique gifts for friends and family. Every purchase supports the Joey Pinz Discipline Conversations podcast, helping us continue to inspire greatness and promote positive change. Visit joeypinz.com/store today and wear your discipline proudly. Joey Pinz merch. Wear it, share it, and live it. Greg, I started my MSP back in the 90s, and I was working way too hard. 14, 16-hour days. You're no stranger to this. And putting exercise in the back seat. And next thing I know, I'm in front of the doctor. She tells me I'm at 340 pounds. So I gained all this terrible weight.
Oof.
And she says to me, if you don't lose this weight, you're not going to see your daughter graduate. So my daughter was just born. Scared the life out of me. Spent the next 6, 7 months. I could abuse myself all I want, Greg, but I've got this family now. It's much bigger than me. I spent the next 6, 7 months, lost about 130 pounds, kept it off. These are lifelong changes, right? You can't look at it as a finishing line. When I tell people this, they say, what's your secret? What you do? And I say, there's no secret, just discipline, motivation, willpower, focus. How does discipline play a role in your life, Greg Fitzgerald?
Well, good. Well, first of all, I'm proud of you for doing that. That's great. That's an incredible achievement. And it is hard, but your discipline, I believe in that as well. Like yours truly, a year ago I looked like Winnie the Pooh.
Whoa!
Like I was like that. And like you, I went on a February. It took me till February. I got through the January workout, and I said, I got to do something. And the funny part was, the quick story was, last year we had a Christmas party, and I wore a Santa suit, and I didn't need a pillow or anything. And this year, I wore the same Santa suit. And we were handing out candy to some kids, and one of the kids gave me the best compliment. He goes, Santa, you're too skinny to be Santa. And I was like, thank you. I was like, that's the best thing you could have told me. I'm definitely going to come visit you on Christmas Day.
That's right.
So,
I'm not on the naughty list.
the discipline, to your point, is it really does apply not just to life, but into work, which is interesting because, like you said, you were working your tail off, and the next thing you look, you're very large.
Yeah.
Well, you can make life easier, and that's what we're trying to do here. Is work should be something you love and something you're passionate about, but not be everything poured into that you sacrifice yourself. And
Mm,
in our case, uh, with Sevco, we really recognized exactly what you said, that people were doing this kind of aggregation by hand and manual, and it was time consuming and painful, and it didn't need to be. And
mm,
our idea is like, we can automate all of this. And so the discipline for organization, I say, is get into a habit. Like you showed yourself, and I've shown myself, where if you just do a little bit every day, it doesn't add up and compile into a morass that you just are weighed down with, hurting
mm.
yourself and the organization. And so Sevco specifically does that. Every day you come in, here's a great example. You come in, and with one click, with a report that's already automated in your dashboard, you can see all of the open tickets and everything that needs to get done for the day. And at the end of the day, and we laugh about this because when we sell, we're often talking about ticket systems and how they really drop at the end of the day. Well, a lot of people are like, dude, I'm going home and I'm going to just be like, I did it. And it wasn't done. Well, the challenge is that ticket stays closed until something opens it. Well, welcome to Sevco. We come in, we recognize that because we're real time on pulling all this data. When you walk back in the morning, there's a report that says, here's some new tickets opened up. Like, you didn't patch this and this wasn't patched. It's not to show people they didn't get the job done, but it's to refine it. So people can be like, that's great. Like, I want to know I'm achieving and what is the progress against the total so we can give a progress report. And that discipline is so important that you've probably read the same book, Compound Effect.
Mm.
Compound Effect is great. Same story. The quick story there is that a woman wanted to run in a marathon, never couldn't even walk down the street, right? But she said, I'm going to walk down the street. Then she walked down 2 blocks. Then she walked down 3 blocks, and it built up in less than a year. Is running a marathon. You're like, that is incredible discipline, focus, commitment. And it changed her life too. And it can change everybody's life if they just get out of these other habits that they have. And a habit is so hard, right? We all sit on our butts, and change is the number one cause of issue for most everybody, because people don't want to change. They don't like it. The inertia is really hard to change once you've kind of gone down a path.
Yeah, it sure is. Greg, I thank you so much for your time. If anybody listening, watching, how can they get in touch with you?
Well, best is through Greg Fitzgerald, or actually do Greg at sevcosecurity.com. You can go to the website as well, and you can ask for some information.
LinkedIn?
You can also LinkedIn. I'm at Gregory S. Fitzgerald under LinkedIn. And you can also go to cybersecurity.com. That's also, like I said, if you're an MSP or an MSSP, you can go there as well to get very low priced, immediate access to some killer technologies that are specifically designed for kind of small, medium businesses and MSPs that are out there. So the combination of everything is a way you can get to me if you need to.
Greg, thanks so much. Next time I'm in Austin, we'll get a cup of tea, maybe go over to Black's. Barbecue.
Oh, now we're talking.
Yeah.
Very good. Very
You very
good.
well. Talk to you soon.
Thank you, sir. Have a great day.
Thank you for listening and/or viewing Joey Pinz Discipline Conversations. Please share this episode with 1 or 2 of your friends who you think may benefit from the episode. Our website, www.joeypins.com. There you'll find lots of resources, and you could join our mailing list. Please follow us on all our social media, Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook. Podcast information, the video version of our podcast is on YouTube. Please subscribe. Audio is on all major podcasting platforms. Please follow them. And if you like it, please consider giving 5-star rating. Would really appreciate that. Thank you again for listening or watching Joey Pinz Discipline Conversations.